Testing my voice.
Questions. On top of that, we are also going to be having moderators ask specific questions. The order for that is going to be, first of all, Butters, then Congo, then Kenny, then Yinglet, then Sunny. Sunny and Congo are going to have their questions spoken by Kenny, the main moderator. Outside of that, rules, moderators basically, they're going to ask questions, manage time, enforce the rules. What they say goes. They are not going to show favoritism. They will collectively declare a winner. We have tried very hard to make sure that the panel is going to be pretty unbiased. So we're going to have people on the right, people on the left, and people in the center to make sure that there is no partisan bias. On top of that, they will evaluate, they will have official sheets to evaluate how each candidate did. On top of that, you guys have some responsibilities. You guys need to remain respectful. You can only ask questions during the Q&A period. Make sure your questions are clear, concise, and relevant during that said period. You guys have to follow the rules of Discord and the server, obviously. And then you should also be working on evaluating the debaters just for yourself. And then for the participants, you guys need to make sure that you're following the time limits. Kenny will stop you if that happens, and I believe Sunny will be able to mute you if you guys go over your time. Participants only have one representative speaking at a time. You guys are responsible for staying on topic, I believe. Yeah, the moderators will correct you if you guys seem to start getting off topic. You need to respond directly to questions again. Moderators will make sure you are doing that. You guys need to make sure that your arguments are clear, logical, and well supported. Just be respectful. Do make sure that you're not spreading misinformation. Again, I think the moderators will clarify if that ends up happening. Follow the rules, all that. So I just want to make sure to both sides, do you guys understand and agree to the rules?
I understand.
All right.
I understand the rules.
And then one last Butters. Wait, no. Sorry, who's the last one? Dark Thunder. Is he here yet? He's not. Okay. I'm just going to assume that he can agree to the rules whenever he comes in. Outside of that, there are some more technical rules and rule violations, but I don't think these need to be orated, especially because it is almost time. We have about 30 seconds left. I'm going to mute my mic. I'm going to let Kenny do his thing. Sorry, Justin, we don't have the time for a national anthem, but yeah, good luck, you two. You three.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We will be starting in 10 seconds. All right, guys. Welcome to the election time debate. We're gonna start off with a coin toss.
Do we just... Who calls it? Who calls the coin toss? Like, what are, like...
Here, I have a quarter with me right now. Do you want me to do it?
I legit also.
All right. Who's heads? Who's tails?
What do you want to be, Weather?
Heads.
All right.
Hey,
I'm tails.
And we let it on tails.
Tails on here too.
All right. Then Weatherman can go first, and then I'll do my final statement last. Then I guess whatever.
All right. Good luck, you two.
Good
or
luck.
you three.
All right. All right. Who's going first?
I suppose I was going first.
All right.
Weatherman, I'll give you a minute heads up when there's a minute left. Same with the other. Thanks.
All right. Time to start it off.
All right.
8 minutes starting now.
Good evening, moderators and members of the audience. The 2024 presidential election, which is already ongoing, is for sure the most important election of our lifetimes. The urgency of supporting Donald Trump to be elected president once again and J.D. Vance to the vice presidency is higher than ever. The extreme rhetoric of the other side is nothing like ever seen in a major political candidate in American history. Never has a major party attempted to slander the main opponent to the point of accusing them and their entire supporting base of being Nazis. Never have they used such rhetoric to drive two people to attempt to take the life of the opponent. Never has 1/3 of a major party wished the opposing candidate was successfully assassinated. The clear incompetence of the Democrat candidate, shown from dodging interview questions, bizarre actions during speech, and the sheer radicalness of the policy proposals is far too much to allow this candidate to be anywhere near being the most powerful and influential person in the world, making decisions that could change the course of history and impacting the day-to-day lives of everyday Americans. The candidate on the other side has made promises that will be detrimental to America, including taxing unrealized corporate tax gains, increasing taxes on working individuals who are already barely making it due to ongoing inflation, and ignoring the excessive prices that remain on essential goods. Furthermore, the current administration, which the opposing candidate has a major role in, has done little to stop the ongoing wars, and in fact has funded further escalations of these wars. Donald Trump, in his first term, showed strength and leadership beyond what most people expected, which included building a great economy with affordable prices on essential goods, homes, vehicles, gasoline, etc., as well as lowering taxes for all Americans and keeping world peace, something that the opposing candidate's administration has completely reversed and more. Trump also worked hard to secure the borders and bring back industry to the United States. By electing Donald Trump, we can return this country back to the economic prosperity we had prior to the COVID pandemic, bring about world peace, secure the border, ensure criminals are brought to justice, and have respect for all Americans, not just those who are loyal to a single party. Thank you. I yield my time.
All right. Thank you for your opening response. Matt, you are up.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. First, a big thank you to our moderators, my opponent, and of course, all of you in the audience for joining us. It's uplifting to see so many people committed to the future of our country and willing to engage in productive debate. Tonight, we are proving that we are capable of having constructive conversations without letting polarization define us. It is a reminder that political maturity means listening, learning, and finding solutions together. In 2 recent polls that I made, I asked what issues matter the most to you and what qualities you seek in a president. The results were clear. The issues you care about the most were the economy, border security, foreign policy, and preserving democracy itself. In terms of qualities, you are looking for a leader who can navigate challenges, strengthen our economy, build healthy international relationships, and protect our democracy. I believe Kamala Harris and Tim Walz embody these values where Donald Trump and J.D. Vance fall short. So let's first talk about the economy. While some may view Trump's presidency through rose-tinted glasses, the reality is far more complex. The majority of economists agree that he inherited a strong economy, and much of the economic progress occurred before his signature policies took effect. Americans have already paid $230 billion and lost 245,000 jobs as a result of his tariffs on China. Trump's new tariffs he is proposing are even more radical than before. He is proposing a blanket 20% tariff across the board, 60% tariffs on China, and 200% tariffs on Mexico. This would cost the average household anywhere between $2,600 to $4,000 a year. His tax cuts added $1.9 trillion to our national debt and helped pave the way for recent inflation. Trump's corporate tax cuts were responsible for 53% of the inflation during the second and third quarters of 2023 and 1/3 of overall inflation since the start of the pandemic. Trump is running his campaign on reducing these corporate tax rates even further and then making his tax act permanent. This would be devastating to our economy and our national deficit. In contrast, Vice President Kamala Harris has been pivotal to our economic recovery. She cast the tie-breaking vote on the American Rescue Plan, which not only saved countless lives, but accelerated our economic recovery more so than any other nation, and even beyond our pre-COVID predictions. She also helped pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which has eased inflation while advancing energy production and lowering healthcare costs. Similarly, under Governor Walz's leadership, Minnesota's economy has grown, with a budget surplus, strong job creation, and lower than average inflation, recognized even by Fox News as the 6th best state for business. Together, Harris and Walz envision an economy that includes subsidizing housing, tax credits for small businesses and families, and closing corporate tax loopholes. They are committed to paid family and sick leave, aligning us with global standards for supporting working families. In contrast, Trump has attacked unions, undermines the Federal Reserve's independence, and is aiming to stack the National Labor Relations Board with anti-worker interests. Harris and Walz, however, prioritize collaboration between business leaders and the working class to achieve economic growth and prosperity for everyone. Next, let's talk immigration. Trump and Vance have treated immigration as a political game, both helping to kill the bipartisan border bill that was endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council and would have allocated $23 billion for border security. This was more than he even secured with a majority Republican Congress. High border crossings stem from economic instability and violence in Central America that has been exacerbated by COVID. These are challenges that Trump's policies fail to address. His previous actions on immigration included a Muslim travel ban that was struck down by the courts, attempts to dismantle DACA that was struck down by the courts, and then used COVID-related funding to build only about 50 miles of his promised 1,000-mile border wall. And then he invoked Title 42 to enforce a near-total complete shutdown at the border, which is not a long-term, sustainable solution. Trump's rhetoric has also fueled hate crimes against immigrants without any substantive immigration reform. His current deportation plan would cost taxpayers significantly, risking a food crisis with shortages and a 4.7 trillion GDP loss. For reference, this is more GDP lost than the 2008 recession. He has even suggested using the same World War II-era act that was used to put Japanese people in internment camps to detain immigrants in militarized camps, and also proposes deporting citizens who protest his policies. This is anti-American and an affront to our values. Vice President Kamala Harris has taken a more practical approach, addressing migration's root causes in Central America, and was even able to secure over $9 billion in investment during her diplomatic trip to the Northern Triangle, which resulted in reducing migration by 72% from that region. She supports DACA protections and proposes allocating another $28 billion for border security, while setting stricter standards for asylum seekers. This approach is more humane, pragmatic, and sustainable for the long term. Trump often boasts of not starting new wars, yet he escalated every ongoing conflict he was in and nearly ignited new ones. His volatile approach nearly brought us to nuclear conflict with North Korea that caused the Pentagon to go into its highest alert ever since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Trump and Vance, now as well, have repeatedly worsened our alliances with democracies abroad and other countries that the U.S. looks to for support. So much so that the revered James Mattis resigned from his post of Secretary of Defense. Trump's cozying up to dictators and appeasement towards Russia has damaged our global standing. In contrast, the Biden-Harris administration has worked to reestablish alliances and rebuild a reliable foreign policy approach. Harris has undertaken key diplomatic missions to Eastern Europe, Africa, and the Indo-Pacific, reinforcing defense treaties, boosting our trade deals, and driving up demand for American-made products. Finally, let's discuss democracy. Trump has spent the last decade undermining our democratic foundations, refusing election results, and spreading lies about election fraud. Even Vance has now claimed that he would have never certified the 2020 election, and has tweeted out that someone violating voting rules regarding political merch and then harassing poll workers is somehow patriotic. Harris and Walz believe in American democracy as our strength and resilience and are dedicated to protecting it. If you care about a robust economy, a balanced yet pragmatic approach to immigration, American leadership on the world stage, and the integrity of our democracy, I urge you to set aside your partisan divisions and vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Their track record and vision offer a brighter future for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And we are going to start off with the first questions. Butters, it is time for you to ask for the first question.
All right. Can everybody hear me? I'm just doing a sound check.
I can hear you.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks so much. All right. So my first question is for Matt on the Harris-Walz side. From an outsider looking in from 2016 to 2020, the U.S. went from talking to North Korea about potential denuclearization, which you have to meet with dictators, as a president. ISIS was defeated in 2 months. Putin took no land under Trump, as he did with Biden and Obama. The Abraham Accords were in effect. Iran was defunded to the lowest point. And like you mentioned the first time, no new war started since Carter. Now, if we look at 2024, we have Ukraine-Russia war, North Korea defensive pact with Russia and sending North Korea troops to Ukraine, the October 7th massacre and everything with Gaza, the Iran pullout disaster, and Iran is more funded now than ever. So how can Kamala Harris prove to the American people that we will be further away from World War III during her administration compared to Trump?
Thank you for the question. First, I want to clarify, I don't think that necessarily either of these candidates winning is going to somehow bring us closer to World War III, regardless of who it is. I think that we should take a step back, breathe, and not engage in fear-mongering. Secondly, I want to remind...
Even if it's chaos, or just chaos abroad, not necessarily World War III, just trying to summarize it.
Okay, yes, okay. So when we look at Trump's actual record, right, the Pentagon went into the highest rating of alert as a result of his tweets that he was doing in regards to North Korea, right? The closest we had ever seen to a nuclear missile crisis since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Secondly, every single engagement that we were already a part of under the Trump administration, whether that be Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, his attempted coup in Venezuela, he exasperated every single conflict to the point where the civilian death toll across all these countries combined was more than the Bush, Obama, and Biden administrations combined, right? So just because we have instances where, there's the conflict in Russia, Ukraine, there was the conflict in Israel and Palestine, which Israel and Palestine has been a conflict for decades now. Just because those instances occurred under the Biden administration doesn't mean it's a result of the Biden administration. Thank you.
All right, your rebuttal, 2 minutes, Weatherman.
As for the tweets, sometimes you have a time when people might give me a second. This chat is distracting me. Hold on. All right. When you have a threat of somebody attacking your country, I'd say a smart thing to do is to counter those threats and possibly up the threat a little bit, because you need to have peace through strength, and to show that strength you must sometimes make claims like such to prevent World War III.
All right, Weatherman, thank you. And Butters, is now time for the second question.
All right, so Weatherman, on the Trump-Vance side, the Trump campaign blames inflation on the Biden and Harris administration, but Trump's solution is tariffs, which would universally, everyone agree, grow inflation, an economic plan that has at least $3 trillion more in spending, and during his administration was the only president in the modern era to spend more every year without a decrease. How can Trump guarantee that inflation will not rise massively during his presidency or the presidency after his, slightly after, and that he won't go crazy on spending that will have a devastating long-term effects on the economy?
Because Donald Trump promises to cut these useless government programs, which take up an exorbitant amount of money. And by cutting that spending, that'll help reduce the deficit a little bit, or at minimum stop the deficit from continuing to go up quite as fast. And yeah, the tariffs would be helpful to the U.S. economy, because by bringing these by pricing these imports, that will help to allow more jobs and more businesses in the United States, so people will create more and pay less.
All right. Matt, it is time for your rebuttal.
All right, so let's get one thing straight. When Trump was president, he approved $8.4 trillion to our national deficit. Not even non-COVID related deficit spending was $4.8 trillion. This is in comparison to Joe Biden right now at $4.3 trillion, including the American Rescue Plan, which was getting us out of the COVID economic crisis. Secondly, let's get the record on tariffs straight, okay? So tariffs are not paid for by China. They're not paid for by other countries. American corporations buy products such as steel from China, and then they import it to the US, and then the American consumer pays those tariffs. That's why 98% of economists agree that Donald Trump's plan is going to be massively inflationary. That's why over half of the Nobel Prize winning economists right now wrote a letter to Donald Trump telling him, begging him to please abandon his tariff policy, because it would be absolutely devastating to the American economy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. No, you cannot. We're on to the next question.
Okay.
The next question comes from Congo. Weatherman. Everyone is still reliving January 6th, and Trump is not a figure to make people feel at peace. What could change under his administration to make even his worst critiques mellow out on a second term? And what would he do differently in tone or action to bring this country together?
Well, he could first start out by actually punishing the criminals that are absolutely destroying the cities in this country, and deporting the illegal aliens who are everywhere, bringing so much crime to the city. And by reducing crime, you're going to reduce the amount of stress people have in these cities, and perhaps that will help limit the cruel speech towards one another. And then maybe Trump could tone down the rhetoric just a little bit if it gets too heated.
All right, thank you. Matt, it is time for your rebuttal to that.
Notice how he didn't actually answer the question. It was about January 6th, and he's talking about immigrants. He's talking about city crime, which has been going down per FBI data, right? The question is about January 6th. This is what's on many Americans' minds when they make their vote this year. That's why you have so many Republicans, very conservative Republicans, that are abandoning Trump, because they find Trump's response to January 6th, the fact that he wants to pardon the people who were there that day, the fact that he chose a VP simply on the fact that his VP is saying that he would not have certified that election that year, and has made tweets about how we should suspend the Constitution. He isn't answering the question because he knows where the question will lead. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Now we're on to the question from Congo to you, Matt. Harris Waltz $25,000 first-time home buyer sounds like a nice policy, but how can you guarantee house prices will not just shoot up to offset this?
So to offset this, the Harrison Waltz plan is to subsidize housing construction and build 3 million new homes, right? So if you're going to subsidize demand, which is what this is, you're subsidizing demand for housing by giving people a home loan, they're also going to subsidize the supply, and the subsidized supply will outweigh that demand. Does that answer your question?
All right, thank you. Weatherman, it is time for your rebuttal to Matt's response. Thank you.
You're not going to have... there's going to be price gouging when the government sets a limit like that. You're going to have price gouging, and in order to combat that, you have to also ban the price gouging, and that is a major issue in the home and really any market right now.
All right, thank you very much, Weatherman. And the next question will start going off to Matt. Matt, I have a question for you. This is coming from me. There is a poll done by Gallup which asked Americans, were you off better 4 years ago? And most Americans have said no to that poll. What would Kamala be able to do to change that?
So this poll is an interesting reflection on the American body politic in regards to how many people vote based on vibes. By most measurable metrics, we have come back from COVID relatively unscathed. Our economy is stronger than predictions pre-COVID. Our economy is stronger than every other country in the world. But to actually address the concerns that people have, this is housing. This is grocery prices. Kamala plans to address this by constructing and building new homes. She also plans to address this by increasing our infrastructure and food security networks and supply chains to bring down costs and combat anti-competitive practices by some of the largest corporations, such as Tyson, in regards to our food supply. That way, smaller business owners and small-time farmer owners can compete with these massive corporate conglomerates, and we can work together to bring down prices.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Weatherman, what is your rebuttal to that question?
You had mentioned that the economy is much stronger than what the forecasts showed pre-COVID. However, I want to mention that the economy, quote-unquote, growth that we've seen is only a result of bouncing back from COVID, and then maybe a little more. But the problem is that economy is only stronger on paper, with the GDP being held up by only a handful of major corporations, and it is not being held up by everyday Americans and by the small businesses, which are the backbone of this country.
All right, thank you, Weatherman. Now it is time for your question for me. Trump's abortion stance has distanced himself from a lot of the evangelical crowd. How can he unite the party on abortion given the country's leftward shift on this issue over the past couple of years?
You just got to make a compromise on this. You can decry abortion as being not good, but you can't outright ban it either.
All right, Matt, what is your rebuttal to that?
I'll probably just have to address this further in the open dialogue section, because I'm really curious as to see what he means by compromise. Because as of right now, 1 out of 3 women live in a state where abortion is effectively outright banned. And this has led to an increase in maternal mortality rate. So if that's the compromise position, I'll just have to ask more about that.
All right, thank you. Now we're on question 4, and we will be starting off with Weatherman. And this question will be said out loud by Yinglet.
It's for Weatherman. You said it right.
Correct.
All right. If elected, Trump will be the oldest president in U.S. history, while J.D. Vance will be the third youngest VP. So how can voters trust Trump's ability to lead the nation at his advanced age? And additionally, if something were to happen to Trump, how can voters trust that J.D. Vance can effectively take over as president, given his 2 years of political experience?
Well, just look at what Trump does every day. I mean, he went from doing a 3-hour sit-down interview with Joe Rogan to a rally in Michigan, and he goes on these rallies day after day after day. He is constantly out there in the public eye. I don't see any decline. I don't think any reasonable person can see decline in him. And I think he has at least 4 years. He did well in the first 4 years. He's doing well now. He's going to do well for the next 4 years. As for J.D. Vance, yeah, he might be young, but sometimes a younger person might have some better new ideas.
All right, Yinglet, it's now time for your second question. Actually, no, we're on the rebuttal. My bad.
Sorry. I actually don't have a rebuttal for that. I don't think we should be taking age into consideration when we are judging presidential candidates. I think that J.D. Vance being young is good. I don't really have strong opinions one way or another about Trump's age per se. It's more so his volatility, his personality than it is his age that I have an issue with. So yeah, I really don't have anything to rebut on that. I think that his age is fine, and there are other issues that I have with him.
All right, we have a new surprise debater coming on the stage right now. Welcome, Justin Weather.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, so as of right now, we are on Matt's question. Yinglet, your turn.
Okay, and this is for Matt.
Correct.
Kamala Harris was labeled as the most left-wing senator a few years ago and claims to regret none of the current administration's decisions. With her now trying to distance herself from past statements, positions, and now the current administration since Biden's withdrawal from the race, how can voters trust her transparency in this election?
Thank you for this question. So I understand the concerns regarding Harris's consistency on policy issues. For example, during the 2020 primary, she did initially endorse Medicare for all. But then she later supported a more flexible path to universal health care with a private option. And I think this reflects her adaptability as she listens to voters and experts who say they want choices in their healthcare plans. In terms of concrete policies, Harris has focused on practical solutions to current challenges, including her recent plan to address rising food costs, and she aims to build a resilient food supply chain by diversifying food production and supporting small farms to prevent price spikes. I think this... Sorry
about that. You go.
Okay.
You continue.
I just want to say that this pragmatic approach shows that Harris has a commitment to tackling our challenges as a nation that impacts American families. And I support her because I believe that she actively addresses these complex issues with thoughtful and evolving solutions.
All right, thank you, Matt. Okay, so since we have Justin entering the ring, we're going to take both Republicans. We're going to give them each a chance at every question, every rebuttal. All right, Justin Weatherman, who wants to go first to rebuttal Matt's response?
I can if Weatherman's okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matt, I think being reactionary and being like flip-floppy is not a good quality not a good characteristic in a candidate. I think we need someone who has a firm grasp on what they believe in. Sure, Trump was a Democrat back in the 2000s, but I feel like he has a firm grasp on what he thinks. But Kamala she goes with the majority. She goes with the flow of what traditional progressives want. I know with conservatives you have more traditional ideas. You want to stick to what's happening right now, but with progressives you want change and stuff. But right now I think we need a president that is more in touch with what they believe in and not reactionary with their beliefs.
All right, thank you, Justin. Weatherman, what is your response?
I agree with Justin. That Kamala, she's constantly changing her positions. Look at her back in 2020; she was further left than Bernie Sanders, and now she's supposed to be a moderate candidate. Come on, no. While Donald Trump over the last decade has held firm on his policies and has not really changed.
All right, thank you, Weatherman. Now we are on question 5. These 2 questions have come from Sunny, who is not able to speak right now. All right, participant 1. We have Matt, who needs to answer the question of, there is a poll, wait, no, that's mine. During the Biden administration's time in office, there has been a surge of illegal immigration apprehensions, specifically at the southern border. How would a Harris presidency relieve and fix this issue?
So the Harris presidency would address this issue first by working together with Congress to pass a long-term solution border bill. Right now, she's proposing $28 billion going towards border security. But she also wants to address the root cause of migration. That way we can stop the flow from its source. She did a practice run, if you will, on this in regards to the Northern Triangle, where she went on this diplomatic mission and was able to secure $9 billion in private investment that created hundreds of thousands of jobs. And subsequently, we saw a net drop of 72.22% in migration within that region. I think that if we were to apply this in other places where we are seeing our migrants come from, we can stem the flow more long term.
All right, thank you, Matt. Weatherman, you are up for the rebuttal.
Kamala Harris has actually recently promised that she will not change a thing from Biden. And look at what has happened during Biden's administration with the illegal immigration. It is at record high numbers. We cannot keep that going. We cannot trust Harris, who said she will do nothing different from Biden, to suddenly do something about the border when she was labeled border czar back in 2021.
All right, thank you, Weatherman. Justin, do you also have a response?
No response.
All right, thank you. Sunny's second question goes to Weatherman and Justin. Trump Vance. This question would be, Trump's economic policy going into the 2024 election has been focused on tariffs. If he is re-elected to the presidency, he has vowed to place a 20% tariff on all imports, a 60% tariff on all Chinese imports, and a 100% tariff on cars made outside of the US. The Tax Foundation estimates that his agenda would cost $7.8 trillion over a 10-year period, while only bringing in around $4.75 trillion in revenue, adding $3 trillion to the debt. How would a Trump presidency bring more economic stability to the country while exacerbating already growing debt?
Does the calculations take into account bringing in all of these industries, all of those industries into the United States, having American people doing these jobs to build these products in the United States? Or is it just assuming no?
Yes, it calculates for that.
Yeah, it does.
Am I allowed to rebuttal that?
First, I would like Justin's response on that question.
My response?
Yes.
Okay, so, we need to undo the trouble that the Biden administration has done to our economy. And you know what? We're gonna need to take some tough measures in the first year or two. And that's gonna harm some people, but we have to get ourselves back on float. Back afloat. I might not totally agree with the Trump tax policy because I differ on that issue with him, but I'm not a total expert on imports and exports, so I would say we have to go through the thick of it, quoting KSI, to get into a more prosperous economy.
All right, thank you. Matt, it is time for your rebuttals to that question.
So this just shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how trade works and how tariffs work, right? So recently, the American Enterprise Institute, which is probably one of the most conservative-leaning think tanks there is right now, they aligned themselves with the Heritage Foundation. They did a study on the impact of American tariffs between 1999 and 2011. And in that period, they found that we lost 411,000 jobs. Recently, the new tariffs have made us lose 533,000 jobs. This is because open trade increases our exports. And the ability to have increased exports actually creates jobs because you're fulfilling a global demand. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. We are done with the prepared questions and rebuttals. Now it is time for the 25-minute open dialogue, where both participants will take turns asking each other questions and responding in an open mic discussion phase.
Do you mind if I ask you a question first and about your opening statement?
Yes.
All right. So when you said in your opening statement, you said the extreme rhetoric of the other side is like nothing ever seen in a major political candidate in American history. I want to get to specifics here. First off, I want to say, and answer this after I ask my other question, but what rhetoric specifically, and how do you reconcile you saying the extreme rhetoric of the other side is like nothing ever seen when Donald Trump rose to prominence by calling immigrants rapists and murderers, making derogatory comments towards women, making derogatory comments towards disabled people, commenting on the physical appearance of his opponents, even within his own party, insulting their families in debates, doxing political opponents, as well as calling his political opponents vermin, people who are poisoning the blood of our country, radical Marxist, fascist, communist thugs. You also you brought up the 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And while I have my empathy for Trump in terms of what he faced in those moments, I don't believe that this is indicative of Harris or her policy proposals. The reality is one was a mentally ill loser who wanted to go out with a bang via death by cop, and the other one was also a mentally ill loser who also happened to be a Nikki Haley supporter for some reason. So how do you respond to that?
Well, for the first part of your question, their extreme rhetoric is calling the entirety of Trump's supporter base Nazis and calling Trump Hitler himself. As for the things Trump have said, some of the things, if it's not on camera, hearsay is not admissible in court. So
it was on camera.
Some of the things that are on camera, though, as for calling, immigrants rapists and murderers, he was referring to the immigrants who are rapists and murderers. He is not calling all immigrants rapists and murderers. You got to take context into account. There's no context where you can justify calling somebody Hitler or Nazis unless they are literally Hitler or Nazis, which is not in this case.
What's the context in which it's okay to call your political opponents radical Marxist fascists? If it's not okay for Kamala to call people Nazis, why is it okay for Donald Trump to call them fascist communists?
Because Kamala is a communist. Her father was a Marxist professor.
Okay.
Her father must have raised her in Marxist ideologies.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so Matt, we have
Sure.
to look at political candidates as someone trying to sell us something. You know, they're trying to sell them. They're trying to sell you, oh, vote for me, blah 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 blah. Right. So
Mhm.
I guarantee you that Trump does not. He's just trying to get media publicity with whatever he says. He does not want to actually implement this stuff, and it wouldn't get passed. So you have to see
What is
behind
he?
the
What
veil.
is, sorry. What is he not wanting to get implemented? What policies?
Saying. I'm not going to go into the specifics because if you watch a Trump debate, you can
I did.
hear what he says.
Yeah.
What?
But
Okay.
what specific policies is he not going to pass that he's running on? I mean, your argument right here hinges on that, right? Right, like it
yes,
hinges
but
on the
same
fact
thing
that
with
he's
Kamala
not going to.
too.
So
You can
I just want to
eliminate
know. I want to know which policies specifically, so we can get that. out
I'll
of
get
the way.
into that. I'll get into that. But I want to say Kamala also with the let's have abortion nationwide. That is not going to happen because the Supreme Court. Remember, the Supreme Court has precedent, and if she puts a executive order up on the table and
Well,
signs it,
she's
the
not
Supreme-
running on. She's not running on an
Okay.
executive order. She wants
Okay,
Congress
but
to
you
pass
know
a
what she's
bill.
gonna do.
Okay.
Okay.
No one interrupt right now. Continue, Justin.
Congress will not get it passed. If there's a Republican Congress, it will not get passed. So, something logically she could do is executive order gets overturned by the Supreme Court. You know, I'm all on states' rights and stuff, but let's get back to what you said. What policies will Trump implement?
No, not implement.
Not implement. Okay.
That he's running
Not
on.
implement. I feel like he's not going to deport 20 million illegals. Okay. We're not going to. That would get shut down in the courts. Okay. We're not going to see a mass deportation effort. This is just to rile up his base, get them motivated to vote. This happens with Kamala too, with the abortion thing I just said. But that is one example.
Can I address that example then? Do you mind?
Yeah, you can address the example.
So first off, you're giving the wrong example in regards to Kamala's policy, right? She has not stated that she's going to do executive orders to
Well, it would be
legalize.
logical to assume that.
No, it's not logical to assume that she's going to do something that she's not running on, right? Just like it wouldn't be logical to assume that Trump is going to do something that he's not running on, right? Unless there are indicators saying that he's going to be doing those things. Maybe people in his campaign staff are saying that he might do those things, or same vice versa for Kamala Harris. But you can't just willy-nilly say, oh, it'd be logical to conclude that they're going to do something when they're not running on it. When no one in their campaign staff is suggesting that they're going to do that. When the 4 years that she was the vice president and Biden was the president, they didn't do that. The logical conclusion is that she's going to try to get Congress to pass a bill that codifies abortion nationwide. And if that doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But to say that, oh, she's just going to sign an executive order willy-nilly is not the logical case here. Secondly, in regards to Trump not doing his 20 to 30 million deportation plan, you do bring up a strong case in regards to hopefully the court shutting that down. My problem is that the court is now more loyal to Trump than ever, okay? And Donald Trump is going to be nominating whoever the next Supreme Court justice is, who will also be loyal to Trump. Secondly, so I have 3 points for that, right? 1, Supreme Court loyalty being up in question. 2, my second point is that even if Donald Trump doesn't do this, or even if the court shuts it down, the rhetoric that Donald Trump does and the fact that he is able to rile up his base, as you say, has objectively led to an increase of hate crimes targeting immigrants, especially in counties that have hosted Trump rallies. How do you reconcile that violence?
I think you don't need to take his words literally. All right.
It's not even about taking his words literally, right? Like,
What did Trump say that was violent?
What did Trump say that was violent?
Correct.
I mean, do you want a list? I can pull up a list, right?
Give me an example.
He talked about filling the border in the Rio Grande with alligators and crocodiles to prevent people from crossing. He said we should put machine guns on top of my border wall so we could shoot down people who try to cross.
Right.
He said we should use the military domestically to kill protesters. Even James Mattis, probably the most revered military general in our lifetime, resigned firstly because he didn't like Donald Trump's foreign policy in Syria, but then in 2020 wrote an op-ed about Donald Trump being a threat to the Constitution because he was asking his advisors to use the military domestically. I mean, there's a whole list of things I could say in terms of what did Donald Trump say that was violent.
What countries don't have border security other than European Union countries, which...
It's not about not having border security. You could still have border security without going to the extremes of filling the Rio Grande with alligators and crocodiles.
Some of these countries go beyond that. They have...
And I don't want us to be those other countries.
Well, what's their...
We set the standard, right? Where America goes, the world follows. And immigration has objectively created America and has created us into being the best country on earth.
Okay, so I want to ask a series of questions to both me and you about the immigration issue so we can find some middle ground. So, first question, we would probably both agree on this. Do you think illegal immigrants should be able to attend American schools?
Do I think illegal immigrants should be able to attend schools?
Like a yes or no?
Do you mean the children
Yes.
of illegal immigrants?
Yes.
I have my sympathies towards the children of illegal immigrants. They're just kids. It wasn't their will or their wishes to be brought here. So I support if they are attending school, they're learning, they're trying to become... I mean, that's literally part of the Americanizing process, right? Like you're being filled with history on American, right?
Yeah.
So I would say I support children being able to attend school.
We agree on that.
Yeah.
Because it's Supreme Court law, right? You know, everyone deserves an education. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think illegal immigrants should try to cross legally than illegally?
Of course. No one thinks that they should be trying to cross illegally. That no one is running on that.
Okay, great. Do you think illegal immigrants should be allowed to vote?
No one thinks that either. It's a federal offense. No one is running on the idea that illegal immigrants should vote.
Okay, great. We agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you know, I think both parties are coming to the realization that a border wall is necessary, and we've seen that with some people. We've seen that with people on the left, the people on the right. We're sort of getting that sense that we need to protect our borders. We need people to cross legally and go through the system. It can take some time. I know we need to fix the system, and that's a legislative issue. It can be helped with the president, but majority of the stuff is going through the legislatures, the state legislatures, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, those states. Even Canada, too. We have some illegal crossings up there. But the thing is, this illegal immigration thing is going to happen on a state level and not a national level. And, you know, the states' rights issue, I think that's a big overlying issue this election, okay? And I am so for states' rights. I think it is a great thing in the Constitution. I know slavery was a bad thing. It is despicable and inhuman. But we have to look at the past, learn from it, and then we could put moral... We could not put moral, but we'll put issues that should be decided by local voters to the state level.
So, when you talk about the necessity for the border wall, and just give me an estimate here, what percentage of border crossings do you think the wall would reduce? If you had to give me like what number would you throw out there?
I know illegal immigration also happens by plane.
Yeah.
But I would say probably 1/4 because of the plane issue. We need more background checks and more stuff with airports too. That's what I believe. And I don't know the actual number. I just put a ballpark out there, 25%. Even if it's helping a little bit, that's fine. But we need some good border security. We need to help fund our border patrol because they have been left out and they've been just sitting there like ducks under the Biden administration. And I think Trump will help our border patrol a lot.
So even the highest estimates that the wall would reduce our illegal immigration by is 15%. Okay? Now I'm going to throw some information at you, and I want to tell you if 15% potential reduction in illegal immigration is worth these costs, okay? So here are my cons for the border wall, if you will. It's going to push illegal immigrants to actually ally themselves with cartels, which would increase the profitability and increase the size of cartel networks. It would increase the death rate of border crossings by upwards of 1,011%. It would violate our treaties with 26 federally protected native tribes. It would violate the treaties of 8 protected indigenous tribes of Mexico. It would violate the private property of over 1,000 property owners, as well as tearing down old religious and historical institutions. It violates federally protected wildlife preserves. It would cause significant environmental damage, including habitat destruction, habitat fragmentation, and would harm wildlife, including endangered species. It would have a destructive effect on subterranean ecosystems as well as surface ones that are sustained by groundwater, affecting our drinking water supply. It would increase flooding of the Rio Grande, causing destruction to homes and infrastructure, and would cost an estimated anywhere from $23 to $70 billion to build, and another $550 million to potentially $28 billion yearly for maintenance for infrastructure updates, and would cause a loss of $12 billion going towards our Social Security. Would you say... Oh, and one more thing. It causes immigrant workers, both legal and undocumented, to be less likely to report OSHA violations and crimes to authorities, which would increase workplace fatality rates and make us less safe. So would you say those potential negative consequences of building the wall is worth it to reduce immigration by maybe 15%?
Now, I'm going to look at this with a rational view, okay? Weatherman, you can chime in after me if you want. So let's look at the ambassadors first, like these native tribes and these Mexican indigenous tribes. We need to look at our treaties, come up with a solution with them, listen to the natives, and use our ambassador to Mexico. Utilize it. But we need to nominate someone. If Trump is in there, we need to nominate someone to the ambassador of Mexico that is good with coming to agreements, right? They're not belligerent. That is very important. We also ambassadors to Central American countries. Those are really important for our foreign policy. But when it comes to a wall, yes, the Rio Grande has been a topic of conversation for a long time. The river goes into Colorado somewhere, and I think the wall. I don't agree with the buoy thing. The buoy thing in Texas is weird. I don't know why Greg Abbott did that. I don't like Greg Abbott. Okay, and listen, the wall. If it's $70 billion, that's not a lot of money. Okay, the taxpayers are paying more than that.
Can I address that actually?
Yeah.
It's not a lot of money when you compare it to the overall national budget, and I would actually agree with you there. But what I'm asking you, is it worth it, right? Like, are you getting your return of investment for that?
I think in the long run, yes, because this will deter future things from occurring. Like, say, 20 years from now, it might not work in the first few years because we'll see people trying to skirt around it, and then we'll have to block those pathways or find a solution to that. So
wouldn't you just be increasing costs then, long term as well?
Yeah, well,
because this is the question, right? Like, how do you address the root cause of migration? How does the wall address that?
All right. Can I answer that question?
Yeah, you can.
We gotta completely reform the immigration system to begin with. It is a mess. I think both sides can agree that the immigration system is a complete disaster right now. It can take years for a application to a visa to come in. It takes a long time. So I think they need to streamline the whole immigration system to make it easier for legal, and of course easier for background checks to get legal immigrants in. And we also need to make sure that illegal immigrants stay out.
Yeah, so I agree that we must reform immigration, but my problem is that Donald Trump doesn't, right? Like in 2017, there was a bill co-sponsored by Tom Cotton that Donald Trump gave his public endorsement of, and this bill actually advocating it sought to reduce our overall immigration levels by over 50%. It wanted to cut green cards in half, and then it wanted to impose a 50,000 immigration cap every year that would be addressed by a lottery system, and almost every single immigration council group, whether they be immigration lawyers or immigration activists or immigrants themselves, came to the conclusion that this bill would not address the root causes of immigration and would actually make the immigration process significantly more challenging, and it would not address the crisis of immigration, right? So my problem is if Donald Trump is the guy that's running on this record of supporting this act, which is called the RAISE Act, by the way, if anyone wants to Google this, and then in his first term, the only reason why the immigrant numbers looked relatively good was because he was able to use COVID-related funding to enact Title 42 and to create 50 miles of the border wall, which really didn't do anything, actually. How is he the better guy on this issue in comparison to Kamala Harris, who has addressed the root causes of immigration, right? Those root causes are violence and economic instability, political instability, and she has addressed this by increasing our diplomatic efforts and ties with these countries, by getting private companies and the private industry to invest in jobs in these countries, and to address the economic crisis and instability, and address the crime and the political instability that these countries are facing by working together with them to solve the issues at their source. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, as for Donald Trump being the guy to do it, he's going to be the first part of the whole thing. He's going to get the illegal immigrants out, which, I mean, that's the first.
Are you referring to the mass deportation plan that Justin earlier said wasn't going to be occurring? I mean, I just want to make sure. Is it occurring or is it not occurring?
I don't know why. I don't know if it would be 20, 30, 40 million, whatever numbers thrown out there. I think Trump can throw out a number sometimes, but
J.D. Vance as well has said that he would support deporting over 1 million people per year, upwards of 45 million under the term of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance. So even his VP pick is saying it.
Well, that's if they're illegal.
Right. But what I'm asking you is this mass deportation plan going to actually occur, or is it not? Because Justin earlier said it's probably not going to happen. But now you're arguing that Donald Trump is the guy to solve our immigration crisis because he's going to do this mass deportation.
No, I think there will be some deportation of the illegal immigrants. I don't know to what scale. Obviously, it depends on what Congress and what the courts allow him to do.
Mm-hmm.
That was a major issue with his last term. The Congress and the courts did not allow him to do certain things.
Right. Why did the courts not allow him to do certain things?
Because they were much more split back then.
No. The court is the same now as it was under his term.
Well, he added
except for the one lady that Joe Biden just picked just recently. But actually, if anything, that actually proves that the court was more conservative under his administration, right, and less split. So why did they shut down his immigration proposals? What did they call it? Do you want to answer, Justin? Or do you want to just say it?
What was it again? What was it?
So the courts shut down the majority of Donald Trump's immigration proposals, right? And I'm asking, why did they shut them down? What was the term that they called those proposals?
Probably, you know what? This is why I like our system. The courts keep it in check. Even if they're Republicans, they have to follow the Constitution. I mean, I'm going to college for law, right? Like, I know my own political beliefs, right? But they put the law first, right?
Right.
So,
I don't know what you
probably because it defied some part of U.S. code or some amendment. But that's why our courts are there.
So
right?
they deemed it unconstitutional.
Time is up.
All right, thank you guys.
We are done with the 25-minute open dialogue, and now we are doing the 20-minute audience Q&A. All right, audience, start asking your questions, and I will be announcing them from the chat, and I will be giving the questions to you guys. Audience, you can ask any question to any specific person, by the way. Anthony is the first question. Anthony has, what will Harrison Trump do to improve the state of our infrastructure? All three candidates, please.
Why don't you pick someone to start with?
Let's start with Weatherman.
Well, Trump has promised to bring industry back to the United States because it's all left because of all of the price increases. It's all left infrastructure, it's all related.
All right.
Hold on. Okay.
Is it my turn to answer now?
Just move on from me. I think
all right.
Something.
Okay.
Matt. All right, Matt.
So,
would you like me to repeat the question, or you got it?
Can you repeat it, please? Actually, that'd be helpful.
What will Harrison Trump do to improve the state of our infrastructure?
Well, I don't know about Trump, but I do know about the Kamala Harris and the Tim Walz record. So I know that Kamala Harris, she supported the bipartisan infrastructure bill. This provided $110 billion to repair roads, bridges, and supporting other infrastructure projects. Another $66 billion for rail and $39 billion for citywide public transit projects. This also supported broadband access, especially in rural areas. $55 billion to ensure safe, clean drinking water. And then I also know the Tim Walz record. While he was governor, he helped support transportation funding. He supported rural infrastructure. He supported green energy infrastructure, especially the ability to create nuclear energy in his state, as well as building more housing and supply chains
All right, thank you, Matt. All right, Justin, what will Harris and Trump do to improve the state of our infrastructure?
So I think both candidates have policies for that, but I think Trump's is much more productive than Harris's. I would say that Harris's meets some requirements of bringing industry back, but also fails in some aspects. Just generally peeking over. I didn't go into the depths about it. I didn't read all about it. But for Trump, I think he is going to bring our businesses back. He is going to promote our small businesses. No tax on tips is promised by both campaigns, so that's good on both campaigns. But let's see if they actually do it. A lot of politicians promise, but they don't keep it. But I think the promotion of small businesses is a good thing that Trump's doing, and I look forward to it if he's president.
All right, next question is for Matt. Kamala Harris has expressed a dislike towards assault rifles and calls for the ban of it for citizens. However, the Second Amendment clearly states that it shall not be infringed. How are American citizens supposed to defend themselves should the federal government become tyrannical and or abusive?
So I actually own firearms, and one thing I'll say is that a handgun is actually better for self-defense than a rifle. You can aim it more quickly. It's better for close quarters. There's a reason why almost every gun shop is going to recommend a handgun if you come to them asking for something for self-defense, right? Secondly, the notion that any restriction on any firearm is somehow the federal government becoming tyrannical or abusive is just a myth that should be dismissed, right? Because we've already done this. Private citizens, they can't own machine guns. They can't own tanks. They can't own nuclear weapons, right? Other countries also already do this. Countries that score higher than America in freedom index rankings and democracy index rankings. So it is my belief that if we have states here who can do it, if we have, because there have been states here who have implemented strong gun reform policies, and if there are countries throughout Europe or throughout East Asia that have been able to do it without becoming tyrannical, without becoming a threat towards their own citizens, I don't see why the notion that America doing it is somehow a complete and total threat. But also, this could be the same thing that Justin was arguing earlier about how, a lot of their policies are probably going to get shut down by the courts. If anyone's policy proposal is likely to be shut down in the courts, it's this one, right? This is the one that is the most likely to be shut down by courts.
All right, thank you. Our next question is for Justin and Weatherman. It is from Sunny. Trump's climate policy is near to non-existent, even though an overwhelming majority of the population believes in climate change and believes we should take action on it. As president, how will Trump, in any way for that matter, try to support protecting the climate from greenhouse gases? This question's for Weatherman and Justin.
So, when I look at climate, I know how. So, I've been in the weather field for, let's say, 7 years. I don't know, Weatherman, how long you've been in it? How many years?
My whole life.
Alright, so a long time. And we've looked at our climate, right? And I made a whole project on this. I believe, yes, we're having some effect on the global climate, but there's also adverse effects such as volcano eruptions, such as the Hunga-Tunga Haipai volcano, which has also caused significant warming in the oceans, which caused more violent hurricanes and more rainfall. So I think Trump should keep funding NOAA, National Weather Service, and other agencies such as NASA to keep these satellites in orbit, to keep these weather offices running to alert people. We already have good alert systems. We need better ones because some people don't get these warnings and they die because of these natural disasters. It's pretty sad. So I think Trump would be. I think both candidates. Sorry, little voice crack. Both candidates would be good for the climate.
Can I actually ask a question on that?
Yes. Yeah.
What was the name of the, not NASA, what was the agency you listed before that?
Are you talking about the NWS or the NOAA?
NOAA.
So NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Association.
Okay. I actually have a question about that. Project 2025 calls for the abolition of NOAA.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say that Trump 100% is going to do what the conservative playbook is regarding his next administration, but there are some serious indicators pointing to that he might do that. So what would your response be to that, if that's okay?
Yeah, so I read that part. It got brought to my attention in another weather server. I disagree with what was said in there. It's not what Trump's going to do. It's what under the Secretary of Commerce, what the Secretary of Commerce would do, all right? So I don't think Trump's going to follow Project 25. He has distanced himself from it. And if he does, yes, he has denounced it. And if he does implement taking away NOAA funding, I'm going to be really mad about that. But I think NOAA's great. They provide accurate research and they help keep people safe. So I don't think he's going to do what it says in Project 2025. It said in Project 2025 that they're going to like implement like a nationwide like alert system type thing, and I'm like, we're not Canada, we're not the Canadian National Weather Service. So I think
sorry,
it's bogus.
Can I hear? I want to hear what Weatherman has to say. What were you saying?
Project 2025 is a load of crap. There ain't nothing good in there.
Can I actually address that, if you don't mind?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you agree that Project 2025 is a load of crap, but then you said that Donald Trump distanced himself from it. The reason why he distanced himself from it is because, according to polling, Project 2025 was at a net negative approval rating of like 50%, right? Like there was.
He denounced it.
Yeah, right. Yes, he denounced it. But here are some indicators that might point out that he might just be doing a slimy politician thing called lying, right? So we have the first fact is that during his last 4 years, he approved over 70% of the policy recommendations made by this same organization. His Agenda 47 plan, many parts of that plan mirror almost exactly the Project 2025 plan, just with less academic policy jargon. Many of the authors of that plan are former staff members of him. Some of them are current staff members of his campaign. J.D. Vance has multiple ties to the authors, as well as writing the foreword to a book from the founder of the project. He has taken in massive financial contributions from them. He has explicitly stated and thanked the Heritage Foundation for their role in laying down the groundwork for what his next presidency will look like. And his name is explicitly mentioned in the document about 400 times, and the author of the playbook has been on record, on video, stating that this was given the green light by Donald Trump and his staff. So while, yes, Donald Trump has said that he denounced it, we can use some inductive reasoning and come to a conclusion that maybe he might be lying there.
All right. Anything else?
And of course, all my sources I will post. I'll have a whole huge document of every source that I used for any positive statement that I made. So, Crystal King, you have no problem from me in regards to sources.
All right. Thank you, you three. The next question is just for Matt. If no, can you go into more detail on how they believe to stop some of the wars that is getting increasingly worse over the last 3 years? And this question's from Butters.
Sure. So first off, the notion of just stopping war, as if a president has a red button to stop all wars. I just want to make a joke about that. Anyways, is largely mythical, right? how do you actually stop an ongoing war, right? You have two options. You either A, take the diplomatic route, which has already been tried, but the problem is that Russia doesn't want to come to the table in regards to any diplomatic efforts if it means that they have to leave Ukraine. And Ukraine doesn't want to come to the diplomatic table if it means that they have to cede their most vital territories to Russia. And so what do you do when you have two opposing forces that are unwilling to compromise? Well, one, we already know that Ukraine is our ally, and we are an ally of Ukraine, right? We did this in the Budapest Memorandum when we promised Ukraine that an attack on them would result in America helping them in their defense. And that is what we're doing. We are sending them as much aid as we can. Now, many people have complained that the aid that we send them is somehow meaning that we can't address our own issues at home. But the problem is one, the aid that we send them is about 1% of the national budget. And two, most of the aid we send doesn't come in the form of cash. It mostly comes in the form of decommissioned military gear that we were already going to get rid of, right? And because we give them this gear, we have to replace that gear, which produces American jobs, right? Because it's boosting demand for our products, as well as saving lives. You can look at a chart, any chart of the death toll in the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, and as soon as our aid hit Ukraine, after that February bill hit, and we were actually able to send the aid that they needed, the casualty rate went down, right? So this is a long-term issue that is going to need long-term plans, right? Kamala Harris has already been to Eastern Europe. She's already gotten Eastern European countries to work together in terms of their security agencies and being able to share important military information to be able to combat Russian aggression towards Ukraine. And I hope I adequately answered your question, Butters. Thank you. Good question.
All right. The next question is from Anthony. What would your candidate call for both sides to do or the federal government regarding this? Additionally, should we include any restrictions on abortion, outlaw, or any other regulation? This question is for all three candidates. Weatherman, would you like to go first?
Okay. Give me just a second. I gotta read that again.
I can go right now if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
So with the Roe v. Wade issue, it is court precedent now that the Dobbs v. Jackson case is sticking with the states, right? So if you're in a state that allows abortion, you can get an abortion. That is fine. You can also, in any state, regardless of the abortion laws, the court ruled this, you can take a abortion pill, which can be taken in the first few weeks or whenever. I don't know the full the things behind it, but there's an abortion pill, and you can take it with a doctor prescribed notice. That's what the court said. But the court also did say you cannot legally try or convict someone or arrest someone for traveling to another state to receive an abortion. Okay, you cannot do that. All right, and it is also in the Constitution. Other states must honor other states' laws. If someone in your state goes to get an abortion in Kansas, say they're from upstate Texas, and from near Lubbock, and they go to Topeka to get a abortion, right? So they're driving or they're on a plane, right? So you cannot charge them once they get back to Texas, arrest them once they get back to Texas. You can't do that, right? And I believe someone who's been adamant about the Constitution and the amendments, you can't. You want to give states these rights that are not outlined in the Constitution, all right? It's clearly there. It's like it says in the 10th Amendment. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the right amendment. It says you must any things not outlined in these amendments go to the states. So abortion is not outlined in the amendments. If it was, then it would be a federal issue. All right. So these issues that are not outlined by the court doesn't say anything about it, or the amendments don't say anything about it, or the court says this goes to the states, it goes to the states. And that is the precedent.
All right, thank you. If Weatherman, you don't have anything to say, then Matt, it is your turn.
Yeah, that was about what my argument would have been. Just it belongs to the states, not a federal issue, because I mean the courts ruled on it. It's in the Constitution with the 10th Amendment. So.
All right, Matt, you're up.
So the courts did rule on it. You're correct. And for 50 plus years, that ruling was Roe v. Wade, which determined that it was a national issue. It was the issue of the right to privacy or due process clause, the 14th Amendment. So for over 50 years, we do have precedent for it being a national issue. But even if you don't want to look at it strictly through the legalist sense, I would hope you'd be able to take it through a pragmatic or a humanist sense or an ethical sense, and that being the states that have abortion bans right now. Many of these states are clustered together, right? You have states where if you live in them, you have to travel 400 plus miles to reach the nearest abortion clinic. This is disproportionately going to be affecting the most poor women, the women that are most in need of abortion health care, right? Another thing is that this is going to increase maternal mortality rates. We've already seen this where states that have outlawed abortion are statistically the states that are most likely to have a high rate of death for mothers during childbirth. And this is because even in states where they make the case of in the life of the mother, right? The problem is that medical staff have to wait till the very last minute, often until it's too late, to meet the legal threshold and standards of the life.
Sorry to interrupt, but time is out for the 20-minute audience Q&A. Now we are ready for the closing statements.
I can go first if.
Since who started the debate again?
Every
Weather.
Yeah, I believe I did.
All right. So for the closing debate, we are going to start with Matt. Please give us your 3-minute closing statement.
All right. So as we reach the close of our debate, I want to begin by thanking our moderators for their thoughtful questions and for guiding tonight's discussion. I want to thank my opponents as well. Your dedication and perspectives have contributed to a meaningful debate. And I want to congratulate you both on your strong and thoughtful presentations. And of course, thank you to everyone in the audience. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement and curiosity. These are what make our democracy work the way it does. And I'm grateful to each of you for taking the time to be here. Now, as we look forward, I ask each of you to think about the kind of future that we want to create together. The choice isn't just about 2 tickets. It's about where we want to take our country. And I believe deeply that it is up to us, to each of us, to shape that future thoughtfully, with courage, and with integrity. To my fellow Harrison Walz supporters, let's not take anything for granted. If you believe in what we are working towards, make sure you show up to vote and keep building this vision with us. For those of you who are undecided or independents, I urge you to take a closer look at each candidate's actual policy platforms. Consider carefully as you evaluate your choices for president. It is essential to assess not only the best and worst realistic scenarios for each candidate, but also how their leadership will shape our future in the long term. And to those of you who support Trump and may see me as an opponent, please know that I am not here to be against you. In fact, I believe we share more than you might think. Like you, I believe in American exceptionalism. Like you, I believe we can build an economy that works for everyone. And like you, I believe in protecting our country's security and leadership in the global stage. As a U.S. Army veteran, I deeply value the sacrifices made for our freedoms and the principles that unite us as Americans. Together, we can honor that legacy by fostering a spirit of respect and cooperation, ensuring that our government serves all its citizens regardless of their backgrounds or beliefs. I want to end my closing statement with words written by our former Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, at the end of his Trump presidency. We can unite without him, drawing on the strengths inherent in our civil society. This will not be easy, as the past few days have shown, but we owe it to our fellow citizens, to our past generations that bled to defend our promise, and to our children. We can come through this trying time stronger, and with a renewed sense of purpose and respect for one another. We must reject and hold accountable those in office who would make a mockery of our Constitution.
Sorry to interrupt, Matt, but your 3 minutes is up.
All right, thank you.
Justin, would you like to do your closing statement?
Yes. So I came with this on short notice, right? I don't have a prepared closing statement, so I'm just gonna go off the top of my head. Yeah, I do agree with Matt. Like, we have a lot of stuff in common. I went into some of the issues that we know we had in common. You know, illegal immigrants, education, that stuff. You know, we agree on that. It's just how we address the issues on what we agree on versus what we disagree on. So maybe Kamala Harris has a different view on how we address an issue, and Trump has a different view on how we get to the same solution. Sorry, not issue, solution. So, if you are voting this year, I would take a step back, look at who is the most stable candidate for the next 4 years. I think America is not ready for Kamala Harris. I think it's not because she's a woman. It's because I think that her flip-flopping is not okay for a leader. I think we need someone that's grounded, and that's basically it. And just make sure if you're 18, go out and vote. Vote for whoever you want. And I'm glad I had this debate with you, Matt, and Weatherman, Kenny. Same thing with people who had the questions. Anthony, Sunny, Butters, Cupcake, and everyone else who asked a question. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Justin. Weatherman, what is your closing statement?
Give me a second to... It's just a very polarized world we live in anymore. And Matt, that was a great closing statement, I gotta tell you. But I think folks just need to be nicer to each other, honestly.
All right. Thank you guys for coming. And with that, I would like to conclude this debate. Thank you for Weatherman, Justin, and Matt for joining us in this debate. Thank you to our fellow moderators, Sunny, Butters, Yinglet, and Congo, who is not here currently. And thank you for everybody in the comments section who gave us questions. And thank you for everybody for coming tonight.